Alright, the Line Whisperer is back after a 2-week hiatus. Wasn't the best timing for me to leave. That was my most prosperous college football and pro football suggestions I had before I left. My big bonus pick, my biggest win of the year so far was Charlotte, -20 over UMass. UMass is a terrible team, and they were horrible in the beginning of the year. They lost to Rutgers, so I figured they'll lose by even more. That game was over by halftime, even giving up 20 points. And then I won my 2 NFL games with Tennessee and the Colts. The Colts not only covered the spread, they won outright because I also said to take the money line. So where have I been the last 2 weeks? I was in Oktoberfest. I went over to Bavaria, to Munich for about a week. Had a great time. Had plenty of beers, as you'll see in these pictures. There's a lot of people, a lot of spotting. I highly recommend it to anybody out there to go check out Munich for an Oktoberfest. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But anyways, let's get to what we all came here for. And as the Charlotte, the bonus pick, I couldn't narrow it down to my play of the week, so I got 2 that I love this week. However, let's first start off with a couple others that I like, and the first one is on Friday night. Friday night, my old standby UCF is back in action. They're a 4-point favorite on the road at Cincinnati. I was going back and forth with this one. I've been thinking Cincinnati. I checked out what they're doing to their field. It looks pretty cool. They got their big logo. It's going to take up the whole field. Should look cool on TV. UCF I'm 2-0 with. They easily covered against Florida International or Atlantic, one of them. And they easily covered against Stanford. Thankfully, I haven't bet on the last 2 weeks because I've been out of the country. And they haven't covered the last 2 weeks. So, if this was a colder weather game in November, I would go with Cincinnati. I was thinking Friday night at home. There won't be much of a Cincinnati crowd. What the hell? Let's stay with our UCF. -4. That's the first game that I like this week. There are 2 other games that I like this week. The first one is Colorado State. At home, getting 7.5. Plus 7.5 against San Diego State. I've liked San Diego State in the past. I think they're a good team. But it's a night game. I can't see them going into Colorado. And maybe they'll win. Maybe they'll win by a touchdown. But I don't think they'll win by 2 scores, which would be required. So we're going to go with Colorado State. Plus 7.5 is the first one. Who's actually been a pretty decent team this year as well. The second game that I like there is TCU. Plus 3.5 against Iowa. TCU just smoked Kansas last week. Kansas stinks, granted. But I could see Iowa being a pick'em. But as long as this is above 3, I can see Iowa winning by 3, but not more than that. Iowa, it's an early game. Iowa always struggles a little bit to score some points. TCU does not struggle to score some points. I can see this being a 21-20 game. I think TCU gives them a good game. At worst, they lose by 3. I think they got a good chance to win outright, which means I think they're going to cover this spread. Now, let's start with what everybody came here for. Our absolute locks of the week. 2 of them this week. The first one is North Carolina Tar Heels -10.5 against my alma mater, Georgia Tech. Last Saturday, I went to the Georgia Tech Temple game. I witnessed live what an atrocious program the Georgia Tech football team is. They're in the middle of a transition going from a run-only triple option from Paul Johnson to now they got Jeff Collins, who knows if he's any good, to a high, spread the ball around, passing a lot, and the linemen that recruited were meant to run block, not pass block. There are no receivers. The running backs don't know what they're doing. They don't know anything about pass protection. It was a complete shit show. Georgia Tech looked horrible. Meanwhile, North Carolina, I've liked all year. I've liked since the beginning of the year. They covered against South Carolina. They were 8-point underdogs. They won outright. And I think last week against Clemson, the best thing is they lost to Clemson. If they beat Clemson, the #1 team in the country, I think I would stay away from this game because there's always a letdown for a team like that because everybody all week in class is telling them, oh, you're the best, you're the greatest. Now they weren't getting that as much. It's going to be a lot more. It was easier for them to get up in the morning and not go out and party because they got to get back out there and they want to show it to Georgia Tech and whoop their ass. They just played the #1 team in the country, probably the best team in the last 5 years, and they went toe-to-toe with them. Now they're playing probably the 168th team in the country. It doesn't matter. It's in Atlanta. They're going to kick their ass. So, take North Carolina -10.5. 1A lock of the week. And secondly, my 1B lock of the week is Utah State plus 27.5 against LSU. I like LSU. I've been to a game there. Southern Louisiana is one of my favorite places in the country. But Utah State's a good team. I like Utah. I like Utah State. I like BYU. They always play well on the road. They're a disciplined team. They don't party late into the night. They don't have all these crazy college shenanigans like the other schools do, because that Mormon religion keeps them disciplined. Enough for them to believe it while they're 18, 19, and 20 years old anyway. So I think Utah State goes into Death Valley. I don't think they're going to win, but I think they could easily keep it within 14. They know how to put points on the board. They'll easily score 20 to 28 points. I just think they'll hold them down to 45 or less. And at that point, we got to cover. And I think Utah State, I think it might even be close at half. I even love it more. It's a 12 o'clock game. Everybody in Louisiana will be hungover for the stadium, so Death Valley won't be too crazy. It'll be nice and quiet in the beginning. If this was 8 o'clock at night, I'd be a little more concerned. But this is a 12 o'clock kickoff, which sucks for our teams coming out west, but just as much sucks for Louisiana because they will even go to bed the night before. So I'm looking for Utah State as my 1B as a guaranteed lock plus 27.5. So one quick recap as we see of what the football field's going to look like at Cincinnati. This may or may not be a hoax. We shall see. I got two absolute locks. No doubt about it. Put the mortgage on it. UNC minus 10.5 and Utah State plus 27.5. And the other three, I like the Friday night. I like my UCF minus 4. They should roll against Cincinnati. UCF puts 35 up in their sleep. I see really Cincinnati struggling to put more than 24 points on the board. And then I like TCU against the Iowa Corn Boys. That should not be a problem. In Colorado State, they're going to play San Diego State. San Diego, all those boys are just going to smoke a whole bunch of weed when they come into Colorado. And should be enough. I think Colorado State might even win outright. But all they got to do is stay within 7, and we got a winner. So there's your locks of the week.